Crap everywhere. Hey everybody, Kyle here with Spicer Designs. Here we go. Welcome back to the channel. All right, today we are going to see if bigger really is better. And I have a feeling that it is, unfortunately. This is the Monport 100 watt CO2 laser. As most of you know that have been following along on the channel, I have a 60 watt Monport CO2 laser. This 100 watt has the autofocus, so that is nice. Anyways, I'm going to get this thing in place and get these set up. I want to do kind of like a head-to-head comparison between the 60 and the 100 watt, just to see if that extra 40 watts makes a difference, if you really need it. We'll see. Okay, I have everything set up. The 60 watt Monport was already set up because I've had it for a while, but I have the 100 watt Monport all hooked up, ready to go. Now, generally speaking, if you get a Monport CO2 laser, they come with everything that you need to get started. And I covered all of this in this video, which was a kind of a crash course to CO2 lasers. And I went over all these details, how to get everything set up, the chiller, the laser, getting connected to it with your laptop, using Lightburn with it, everything. So if you're new to CO2 lasers, I highly recommend you check out that video. Otherwise, we're not going to cover all that stuff in this one. The only thing I will say is the Monports do come with these tubs right here, and they have like a submersible pump, and you can use this for a chiller. I think this is not a very good setup. They give it to you as an option, so you don't have to buy additional equipment. It will work, but it will not continuously cool the water. So once that water gets warm, you have to cycle it out with cooler water because you do not want your CO2 tube getting too hot. So I don't need this. You've got your flex hose, and you've got this handy little man purse, or just regular purse if you're a woman, full of manuals and hose clamps and glasses, all the crap that you need. And came with this little ribbon right here. I'm gonna save this for later. Freaking flies, I swear. I opened the door for 10 minutes. He missed it. Damn it. Nothing that irritates me more than flies. All right, little tickle ribbon for later. Back to the chiller. I would highly recommend getting the external chiller, which Monport does offer. This is the CW-5200 industrial chiller, and it works pretty well. See right there, that is the exhaust, and I have a temporary setup right now using that. And another thing that I would recommend is I would remove that exhaust fan. I actually did that in my 60 watt. And the reason being is because it makes kind of an awful sound, very high pitch, like a high squeal, and it'll start to give you a headache. At least that's what it's been doing to me, because I haven't removed this one yet. But you can only do that if you have an external like inline duct fan, which is what I have right now temporarily. But it will become permanent eventually when I install the exhaust system in the shop. I just haven't got to it yet. Okay, I want to try to move this along as quick as I can, because I have a lot of things I want to cover that I think will be very helpful to you if you're interested in getting a CO2 laser, whether it's Monport or any CO2 laser. But I do like Monport. Number one, I want to compare the 60 watt power versus the 100 watt power. That's going to be obviously the biggest difference between these two CO2 lasers. And if you're on the fence about getting one, you might be thinking, do I really need the 100 watt? Is bigger better? Sometimes it's not. Freaking flies back. So we're going to talk about that. And number two, I want to talk about some differences in options. Now, this machine is lacking a couple of options that this one has. All these options I'm referring to, you can get on both of these, but I now have one with these options that I can actually show you and decide if they're worth it or not. The third thing I want to talk about is the Monport brand in general. There have been a couple concerns in the comments, so I do want to address them and just clarify it so that you know exactly what you're getting into. I had a couple of issues with this one getting started. I just want to be 100% transparent with you guys. I do believe those issues were not normal for Monport. I've had zero issues with this one. You're going to get that with any manufacturer. And we're going to be doing some real life testing to see just how much more efficient a 100 watt is versus a 60, if it is at all, by cutting out some of these leather machine keychains that I will be giving away. Not all of them, some of them. They have a whopping $3 to $5 value. I'm gonna say 5. I mean, these are freaking clutch right here. Machine. Now I am using Lightburn with the Monport lasers, and if you're gonna use Lightburn with a CO2 laser, you are going to need the DSL license. I believe it's a DSL. If it's not, I'll write something else right there. And that is like 120 bucks a year for that license. Now I spent about 6 or 7 hours yesterday creating a bunch of test grids and some other samples just so I can get the settings just right on this new 100 watt because frankly, I've never used it before. And I will tell you, it's freaking powerful. The day before that, spent a little bit of time fixing some issues with this thing, which we'll talk about later. Not a big deal. So what I did was some comparisons on the 60 watt versus the 100 watt. So we'll start right here with the leather. So what I did on these two leather test grids is I created a file on Lightburn. Pretty easy to do. You just create a bunch of different layers and then you use like the array tool and you can create a grid pattern and put all your different speeds and power settings in each little square. Now what I did was I made a second little square on the inside of the larger square, which you can see right here, and I put the letter M because I wanted to also show a little bit of detail with lettering in these tests as well, which I thought was helpful. Fucking fly. I swear, if I don't get you right now, I know there's a bunch of you. I missed it. See, now I lost my train of thought because of a freaking fly. So what I did was I took the 100 watt and I put the same speed settings and power settings and I used it on both the 100 and the 60 because I wanted to see at those percentages and those millimeters per second what kind of difference you have between a laser that's almost double the power. And you can clearly see right here that the 100 watt is more powerful. That last bottom right cube, the 75 millimeters per second at 30% power, damn near cut all the way through the leather. It's actually, you can see through it in a couple spots. And then you'll notice a couple other spots here in the 10% column, the 100 and the 75 millimeters per second. For whatever reason, the 100 watt didn't output that entire cube or little test grid there. I don't know why. I have no idea. I'm going to reach out to Monport. I'm sure they'll have a reason, but I think there's an issue. Now on the 60 watt test grid on this piece of leather, I would say that the tests came out way more defined, a lot crisper engraving, and I would say I really liked the engraving quality on the 60 more than the 100. And we can see that a lot more here on the wood, which we're going to talk about in a second. Now I made another test grid. This one has a couple different settings. I did like a lower setting because I was burning through this other sample where I went up to 30%. So I wanted to dial those power settings back a little bit so that I could get a wider range of clear engravings, and it did do a lot better. Now these little test grids are pretty common practice. I highly recommend doing this with all your material and different lasers and just kind of keeping them around in your material drawer. These are super, super useful, and it makes efficiency on different projects just more efficient. Okay, moving over to the 3mm basswood, I cut all of these out of this piece right here, all the same sheet of basswood. That way, all the results are as uniform as they can be. Now you can clearly see on the 60 watt versus the 100 that the 60 watt is way more defined, just a cleaner looking engraving versus the 100 watt. A lot of charring, and again we had a little mishap right here where it didn't fully engrave everything, but overall these engraving settings much better on the 60 watt. I would choose this any day. But I also understand using that same power percentage on a machine that's almost twice the power as the 60, you're not going to get the same results. So what I did was I created another test grid right here. Damn it! So what I did was I created another test grid right here. I multiplied all of the power percentages on the first one by 0.6. That way, mathematically, they should be giving equal output. So in this one we have 6, 9, 12, 15, and 18% versus 10, 15, 20, 25, and 30%. And you can see right here that the 6% column did not output. I don't necessarily think that was an issue with the laser. I'm guessing that, well, it was because of the laser. I'm guessing that that was probably too low of a parameter or a cut percentage for that thing to output, so it just didn't do it. But I haven't confirmed that yet, but it makes sense. And I have another assortment of other tests that I did, which was a learning curve.
Sorry, I don't know that.
Do I have to unplug all the damn electronics here or what? Technology's awesome. Like I said, it was a learning curve, So I was doing a lot of testing, changing the settings to find out where that happy medium was for the 100-watt laser with this wood. So that's a quick way for me to demonstrate the differences in power between the 60 and the 100-watt CO2 laser. Obviously, these machine can cut and engrave a ridiculous amount of different materials. We're only working on these two because those are the most common ones that I use, like I mentioned before. So there's just not enough time in the day to test everything. Now I want to talk about some of the option differences. There's not a lot. Now both units are going to have the same exact external chiller. I believe that you can get these with an internal chiller as an option as well, but nothing wrong with the external ones. They both have the same exact exhaust setup. Physically, looking at them and measuring them, they are both the exact same size, with the exception of this on the 100-watt. Because the 100-watt CO2 tube is longer, you have this little part that erects out of here. A little excited. This one is all contained within the normal shape there. They both plug into a 120 volt outlet. Same with the chillers, no big deal. All the access panels on both of these are exactly the same. The cut dimensions for the 100 versus the 60, exactly the same. So here are the differences. First off, on the control panel, you can see we have a key switch right here. This is for the laser. Then you have an e-stop. This e-stop is also labeled as a control switch. This is actually how you turn the machine on and off with the e-stop, which kind of odd, but it works. And then you can see our controller, the interface here. It is a little bit different than the 100-watt, which I'll show you here. So on the 100-watt, we have the e-stop separate. You still have your key switch for the laser, and then now you have a control switch button here instead, which I do like this better. And the interface is a little bit different. It's either an updated interface or it's just because this has some additional options or one option. So you have a couple extra buttons on here. But this one is actually pretty nice. Back to the 60, we'll start off with the manual focus. This has a manual focus. So you'll notice there's a knob right here. You turn this knob, the bed will raise or lower, and you're going to use the gauge that they give you to stick between your material and the laser head nozzle. Once you adjust the bed to the right cut height using that gauge, then you're good to go. I really don't mind this setup. It's not a big deal. It doesn't take very long. So if it saves you some money, it's really not a bad option to not have. Moving over to the 100-watt. This one has autofocus. You'll notice there's no knob right there. All we have to do is come over to the interface and hit focus right there. It'll ask you to confirm. You go ahead and hit enter, and then what'll happen is there's a step motor down here. It'll raise the bed. Once your material hits that nozzle's spring loaded and has a little limit switch inside there. So it'll load up that nozzle, hit that limit switch, and the bed will go back down until it gives you the correct cut distance between your material and your nozzle. So the autofocus is a really nice option. I do like it. I did have some issues with it when I first got it, but I like it. I know this is a lot of talking, but it is helpful information if you're interested in getting one of these. Now, if you saw the first video that I made with the crash course on the CO2 laser, you might remember that I had some issues connecting my laptop to the laser. For whatever reason, the USB connection was not working, so I had to use the Ethernet. And in order to use the Ethernet, you have to find your active IP address on your laptop or computer, and then you have to alter it and then put it into your laser. It's a mega pain in the ass. Now, I don't know if there was an update or hardware changes made, software, I don't know. But when I hooked up with the USB to my 100-watt, it connected right away, which is awesome. So then I thought, what if it works on the 60-watt? So I tried it on the 60-watt again, and it worked. So I don't know what the hell changed, but I'm very happy that the USB works because it is so much faster. Moving on, we're gonna do a trial run on each machine, cutting out these machine keychains out of leather. So we're going to run a batch of so many keychains on each laser, hopefully giving us very similar results. All right, I have everything set up on Lightburn. We're gonna cut 7 keychains on each machine. Looking at our 2 sample pieces, we've got on the 60-watt, 75 and 30 is pretty close to 125 and 20. And that is actually the settings that I cut these with. But just to make this fair, we obviously know if I cut it on 75 versus 125, it's gonna cut faster on the 100-watt. So I'm gonna go 125 on both, and I'm gonna bump up the power and just see what the final result looks like. And we're gonna be cutting on this piece of leather. This is the very last chunk of leather that I have that I really like. I bought some other stuff and I'm not happy with it. This stuff's a little bit lighter and it shows up better. I like this stuff for the keychains. So go ahead and power it up. Go ahead and put our material in here. So we're all set in here. Just gonna close it. We've got the exhaust hooked up, the chiller's running, laser on, very important. So we'll run the batch of 7 on this one, then we'll try it on the 60 watt. Kind of hear that high pitched noise. It's getting louder because I have the inline fan also pulling, so it's actually making that fan go faster, which is not good for it. All right, I'm gonna hit frame. All right, start this sucker up. All right, it's all done. Just want to make sure that they cut through first. Yep, looks good. So I'm going to shut this thing off because it's annoying. All right. They all fell out, that's good. So I'm going to put these in the Monport 100 pile, and we cut these at 125 millimeters per second at 20%. So I'll get these cleaned up while I'm cutting the next batch on the 60 watt, and then we can see how they look. Now on the 60 watt, I'm gonna go same speed, 125, but the max that I went on this grid was 30%. I'm actually gonna go to 50%. That way, it's gonna be the same cut time, different power settings, but we'll see if we can get the same result with the 60 as we can with the 100. Let's move our leather over. It's got my nipple. Some serious suction there. All right, chiller. It's like the worst freaking sound possible. I don't know why they would even put that little buzzer in that chiller, but they do. Could be a lot more subtle. Again, to power this one up, twist that, should home all that happy crap. Goes back to the origin that was last set. All right, I'm going to manually move it over. That looks good to me. And then we're going to hit origin. So that will now lock that origin in place. And we're gonna double check our distance. Needs to be brought up a little bit. Perfect. Like I said, the manual really is not bad. So we are good to go right there. And laser on. I just gotta hook up my laptop. All right, here we go with the 60 watts. And this took, probably can't see that, 17, almost 18 minutes, which was basically identical to the 100 because they were going the same speed. I'm going to peel these off. So they all fall out. Looks like we got a little tiny hang up on a couple of them. And I'll get all this cleaned up and we'll take a look at them right now. All right, I got all these wiped off. I just used a dry microfiber. I didn't use any kind of solvent. This is the 60 watt side right here, and this is the 100 watt. Again, 125 millimeters per second at 20%, 125 millimeters per second at 50%. And you can clearly see that these are a lot darker. I probably could have went to 40% on these. They engraved a little heavy. These are pretty much where I want them. And this is the same setting that I used on these right here. You could tell these really pop more. That's because I used the Resolene on them, so they have a nice sealer on them. And I'll show you a picture of these right now, of all of these done with the Resolene on them. They turned out pretty nice. So in conclusion, between the 60 watt CO2 laser and the 100 watt, the way I see it is they both have their strengths. You can clearly see that you can get the same results at the same speed, actually even a heavier engraving with the 60 watt, just because I didn't have the settings quite perfect. But they both can accomplish the same thing in the same amount of time as far as engraving. So I would say if you do mostly engraving and you also cut some material, probably more on the thinner end, the 60 watt, probably all that you need. That's all that I personally need. One of these machines I'm gonna be getting rid of. And right now, I'm leaning toward getting rid of the 100 watt. I just don't think I need that kind of power for what I'm doing. Now, as far as the 100 watt goes, I would say if you're cutting a lot of material, thicker material, any kind of material, maybe you have kits that you sell and you pump these things out like crazy and it's all cutting with minimal engraving or even a lot of engraving, the 100 watt is going to be a better fit. So it really just comes down to preference and what the application is. Now the last thing that I want to talk about is Montport as a brand, because there have been a couple of complaints in the comments and I want to address them because they are legitimate complaints. The biggest complaint, really the only complaint, is customer service. And I have a lot of mixed feelings about customer service. If you're going to be buying machines, lasers, plasma cutters, metal brakes, whatever the hell you plan on buying, you have to have the intention of being able to figure these things out and do some troubleshooting on your own. Anytime you have a little snag or an issue with the machine, or maybe there's a software issue, you can't be in such a hurry to call customer service or tech support. Now that's just my opinion. You can do whatever you want, but you're never going to fully learn all the ins and outs of your machines if you let someone else figure out all your problems for you. But on the other hand, it's still important to have good customer service and good tech support, which Montport doesn't have the greatest. They are working on it. They are not as popular as some of the other laser brands like, say, Omtech. Omtech's probably the best comparison to Montport. And from all the research that I've done, I don't see a whole lot of difference except for in the price. Now, the Montport laser uses a Ryuda, however the hell you pronounce it, controller, and it is a KT332N, as in nipple. They use the same interface because the interface and the controller all go together. I'm not sure on their stepper motors and their other controllers, but if the controller's the same, I'd have to imagine that all the other components are probably the same as well, but don't quote me on that. The overall design and build, they almost look identical. So at the end of the day, if you get an Omtech, you're paying for a more well-known brand. You are going to pay more money for it, but if you're willing to take on a little bit of troubleshooting here and there on your own, in my opinion, the Montport is what I would pick. You're going to get the same product for a lot less money, and there still is customer service, there still is tech support, and it's getting better and better every single day. It's not quite where it needs to be yet, but it's getting better. So I feel like the Montports are a better value. Now, I mentioned at the beginning of the video, I had an issue with this when I first got it. Just a brief rundown. I was having issues with the autofocus. So the stepper motor that controls the bed from going up and down was acting up. I did try calling customer service, get a hold of tech support. There is someone available on the phone. They weren't available when I called. So they then asked me to send an email with the issue, and then they would basically schedule a call or something to help me work through it. Being that I have an electrical background and I actually specialize in control wiring, I dug into the circuit myself. I found a loose connection on that stepper motor. I'm sure it was a fluke, but it probably should have been caught by quality control, and it wasn't. Either way, I got it worked out. Everything is working the way it's supposed to now. But like I mentioned, since I took the initiative to try to figure out the issue on my own, I now know more about this machine. I know more about how it works. And if there's ever an issue in the future, I could probably troubleshoot it on my own a lot quicker. And to me, that's very important. Damn it! Anyways, that is going to wrap up today's video. One more little bonus for you. These cheap little keychains that I made in today's video. I will be throwing these keychains in for each hat order. Some of you know I just had more hats made with the new machine logo on it. I have the sage green and I have a charcoal and black. They're really nice hats. And of course, I still have the Spicer Designs ones as well. Those are in the sage green and the charcoal as well. I have to repeat myself. So if you order a hat, you'll be getting a free machine keychain in there as well. They are 30 bucks. That includes shipping within the US. You can email me right there. Tell me what color and logo that you want, and I will send you the payment information and I'll get it shipped right out to you. But you better hurry because there's a limited quantity. So if you found today's video helpful, please give me a thumbs up and consider subscribing. And if you're interested in pulling the trigger on one of these Montports, which can make you some serious money, make sure you use promo code Spicer Designs. It will save you 10%. Not bad. Anyways, thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next one. Hell yeah! Montport! This one may be for sale. I think I like my 60. Even if it doesn't have autofocus, I don't care. I'm guessing that's 10mm because everything that comes from China is 10mm. Son of a bitch, I was wrong. 8mm. My freaking outlets are used. Damn it. So this proves bigger isn't always better. Whew. Thank God.